Maria Santos pushed her heavy cleaning cart through the polished marble corridors of the Pentagon at exactly 3:47 a.m., just like she had done religiously for the past 18 long years of her life. To everyone who passed her in these sterile, fluorescent-lit hallways, she was completely and utterly invisible, another nameless, forgettable face in the vast background of America's most secure and heavily guarded building. The generals, in their perfectly pressed uniforms, adorned with ribbons and medals representing decades of military service, didn't acknowledge her existence as they hurried past, with classified folders tucked securely under their arms, their minds focused on matters of national security that she supposedly couldn't comprehend. The sharp-eyed intelligence analysts, trained to notice the smallest details that could save or cost lives, barely glanced her way when she methodically emptied their overflowing trash bins filled with carefully shredded documents containing fragments of state secrets. Security guards with their weapons and communication devices nodded politely but never really saw her weathered, lined face or noticed the deliberate, almost military precision in her practiced movements as she went about her nightly routine. She was just the janitor, after all, a middle-aged Hispanic woman with permanently calloused hands and a perpetually tired expression who mopped floors, cleaned windows, and emptied waste baskets for minimum wage, while the real important work of defending America happened around her. But what they didn't know, what none of them could possibly imagine in their wildest dreams, was that Maria Santos was about to become the absolute center of the most explosive and dangerous classified operation in Pentagon history. And in less than 6 hours, when the morning briefings began and coffee-clutching officials filled these same corridors with their urgent conversations about global threats, everything they thought they knew about the quiet, unassuming woman with the industrial-strength mop and faded maintenance uniform would shatter completely and irrevocably. Because sometimes the most dangerous and valuable secrets in the entire world are hidden in the most ordinary, mundane places you'd never think to look twice. And sometimes the people you never notice, the ones you walk past every single day without a second thought, are actually the ones watching you the closest with trained professional eyes. Maria's worn security badge hung loosely from her faded grey uniform pocket, swaying gently back and forth as she moved with methodical efficiency between the high-security offices that contained America's deepest, most carefully guarded military secrets and strategic plans. The scratched plastic card looked absolutely identical to every other maintenance worker's identification badge in the massive 5-sided building, featuring a simple employee photograph taken under harsh, unflattering fluorescent lights, a basic clearance level printed in standard government font that suggested limited access, and what appeared to be nothing more than a standard magnetic strip for basic door access throughout the facility. But hidden beneath the innocuous surface coating, completely invisible to casual observation or even detailed inspection, lay 7 sophisticated layers of quantum encryption technology developed by the NSA's most advanced cryptographic division, cutting-edge biometric scanning capabilities that could read fingerprints, retinal patterns, and DNA traces simultaneously, and highly classified access codes that could unlock doors and computer systems that most Pentagon officials didn't even know existed within their own supposedly familiar building. She paused outside General Marcus Harrison's spacious corner office, checking her dented digital watch with the kind of practiced precision that spoke of extensive military training and years of covert operations experience. 4:15 a.m., right on schedule, just like every single night for the past 3 years of this particular phase of her mission. As she carefully inserted her specially crafted master key into the lock with movements that betrayed years of specialized Training in lock-picking, surveillance, and infiltration techniques, the badge automatically transmitted her exact location coordinates to a secure server buried 3 floors beneath the building in a sub-basement that didn't appear on any official architectural plans, blueprints, or maintenance records. For 18 long, patient years, every single movement she made throughout the building, every surface she cleaned with meticulous attention to detail, every whispered conversation she overheard in supposedly empty offices had been carefully documented, systematically catalogued, and thoroughly analyzed by a team of handlers who existed in the deepest shadows of American intelligence operations. The Pentagon's most valuable intelligence asset wasn't a multi-billion-dollar satellite system orbiting high above Earth with sophisticated cameras and listening devices, or an elaborate spy network operating in dangerous foreign capitals around the globe. It was a woman they paid minimum wage to empty their trash cans, mop their floors, and remain completely invisible to the people who made decisions that could change the course of world history. The critical morning briefing was scheduled to begin. At precisely 0800 hours sharp in the mahogany-paneled conference room, reserved for the most sensitive discussions of national security matters, but General Marcus Harrison was mysteriously nowhere to be found among the assembled officers and intelligence officials. Colonel James Matthews, a decorated veteran with 30 years of military service, paced back and forth across the polished hardwood floor, his usually composed military bearing betraying growing agitation and genuine concern as precious minutes continued to tick away on the wall-mounted chronometer that kept perfect time for the world's most important meetings. "Where the hell is he?" he demanded, with increasing frustration, his authoritative voice echoing off the specially designed soundproofed walls that were built to contain even the most sensitive discussions about America's deepest secrets. The general's visibly nervous aide, a young lieutenant who had never experienced a crisis of this magnitude, stammered through increasingly desperate and implausible explanations. Maybe Harrison had overslept after working late on classified projects. Perhaps there was unexpected traffic on the interstate highway system. Possibly a family emergency had suddenly called him away from his duties. But none of the hastily constructed excuses made any logical sense to anyone who had worked closely with Harrison and understood his character. The general was military precision personified, a man whose entire distinguished career had been built on unwavering punctuality and absolute reliability, never late for anything in his professional life, never absent without proper notification through official channels and appropriate protocols. As the minutes continued to tick by with agonizing slowness, each second feeling like an eternity, a growing sense of unease and foreboding settled over the assembled high-ranking officers like a heavy, suffocating fog. Then Lieutenant David Foster, normally one of the most composed and unflappable officers in the Pentagon, burst through the heavy security doors with such force that they slammed against the walls, his face pale with shock and something that closely approached genuine panic. "Sir, we found General Harrison's office completely ransacked and destroyed," he announced breathlessly, struggling to maintain his military composure. "Classified documents scattered everywhere across the floor like confetti after a parade. His computer hard drive has been completely removed from the secure terminal. The safe containing our most sensitive materials has been compromised and appears to have been opened by someone with sophisticated knowledge of our security systems." The room immediately erupted in controlled but intense chaos as emergency protocols automatically kicked in and security measures began activating throughout the building. But what none of them realized, what they couldn't possibly know or even imagine, was that Maria Santos was quietly mopping the hallway directly outside their door, moving with the same methodical efficiency she had displayed for years, and she had been waiting patiently for this exact moment to arrive for 3 long, carefully planned years. The elaborate trap that had been so carefully constructed was finally closing with absolutely perfect precision. The FBI investigation moved swiftly and decisively through the Pentagon's complex maze of sterile corridors and security checkpoints. Like water flowing through carefully designed channels that had been constructed specifically for crisis situations. Elite counterintelligence agents in expensive dark suits, CIA liaisons with security clearances that went far beyond top secret and into classifications that most government officials never even heard of, and specialized internal security personnel, formed a highly trained task force within just hours of the shocking discovery of Harrison's compromised office. They systematically questioned every staff member with surgical precision and advanced interrogation techniques, meticulously reviewed. Thousands upon thousands of hours of security footage frame by painstaking frame, using the most sophisticated analysis software available to the intelligence community, and analyzed every microscopic detail of Harrison's compromised office using cutting-edge forensic techniques that could detect evidence invisible to the naked eye. But there was a significant and deeply troubling problem that frustrated every single investigator working on the case. The advanced security camera systems showed absolutely nothing unusual, suspicious, or out of the ordinary during the time period when the breach must have occurred. No unauthorized personnel had entered the highly secure areas according to the electronic records. No suspicious activity had been recorded by the sophisticated monitoring systems that watched every corner of the building, and there was no evidence whatsoever of forced entry, sophisticated lockpicking, or external security breaches that would indicate an outside infiltration. The perpetrator had somehow managed to vanish like a ghost, leaving virtually no trace of their presence, identity, or methods behind for investigators to analyze. Meanwhile, Maria continued her well-established nightly routine exactly as she had for 18 long years, remaining as completely invisible as ever to the growing team of investigators who filled the hallways with their urgent activities. She watched with practiced calm and professional detachment as federal investigators dusted meticulously for fingerprints on surfaces she had systematically cleaned just hours earlier, using industrial-grade solvents specifically designed to eliminate all traces of human contact. She observed with hidden amusement as they carefully reviewed detailed electronic access logs that her specially modified badge had been expertly designed to avoid triggering through sophisticated electronic countermeasures, developed by the most advanced technical specialists in the intelligence community. But what truly amazed her, what demonstrated the absolute perfection and brilliant success of her deep cover operation, was how thoroughly and completely they ignored and overlooked the middle-aged woman who had actually been inside that office for exactly 47 carefully timed minutes the previous night. The same woman who now held Harrison's encrypted hard drive hidden inside her innocent-looking cleaning supply cart beneath a custom-designed false-bottom compartment that had never appeared on any Pentagon blueprints, maintenance records, or security documentation. The irony was almost overwhelming, and would have been funny if the stakes weren't so incredibly high. They were searching desperately for a ghost who was standing right in front of them, invisible in plain sight. At exactly 2:30 p.m. precisely, when the investigation had reached its most intense and frustrated point, everything changed dramatically and permanently when Director Rebecca Walsh from Naval Intelligence burst into the task force briefing room with a revelation that would completely rewrite everything they thought they knew about the situation, their security, and their fundamental understanding of how the Pentagon actually operated. General Harrison wasn't the target of this operation, she announced with barely contained urgency, her voice tight with the enormous weight of classified knowledge that she had been carrying for months. He was the leak we've been desperately hunting through multiple intelligence channels for the better part of a year. We've been tracking his increasingly suspicious activities and concerning behavior patterns for 6 long months through our most sophisticated surveillance methods. And last night, our carefully embedded asset finally gathered the concrete, actionable evidence we needed for prosecution and to prevent a catastrophic security breach. The room fell into absolutely stunned silence as the shocking implications hit every person present like a physical blow. Asset? What asset? None of them had been briefed about any ongoing counterintelligence operation within their own building, and the realization that they had been kept in the dark about such a critical security matter was deeply unsettling. Walsh continued, with grim determination and military directness. Operation Invisible Shield has been running continuously and successfully for 2 full decades without interruption. We placed a highly trained deep-cover operative within the Pentagon's maintenance staff to monitor potential security threats from within our own ranks, because sometimes the greatest dangers to national security come from inside the very institutions we trust to protect us. Colonel Matthews felt his entire world tilting dangerously on its axis as the stunning revelation sank in and he began to understand the true scope of what had been happening right under their noses. You mean someone has been conducting sophisticated surveillance operations on all of us while pretending to clean our offices and empty our trash? Walsh nodded with the kind of military directness that left no room for doubt or misinterpretation. Not conducting surveillance for hostile or malicious purposes, but actively protecting national security interests and the safety of our country. And last night, that dedicated operative successfully prevented Harrison from selling detailed nuclear submarine blueprints and advanced weapons technology to confirmed foreign agents who would have used that information to threaten American lives and interests. The question that now hung heavy in the air like a suffocating cloud, unspoken but deafening in its enormous implications for everything they believed about security protocols, was devastatingly simple, yet terrifying. Who exactly had they been? Trusting with their deepest, most dangerous secrets for nearly 2 decades, without ever knowing their true identity, capabilities, or mission. The revelation struck the assembled task force like a devastating bolt of lightning when Director Walsh finally spoke the name that would change everything they thought they knew about their own workplace and the people they had worked alongside. For years, Maria Santos, 18 years of absolutely faithful, dedicated service to this country and to protecting your lives, and not a single one of you ever suspected her true identity, her real mission, or her extraordinary qualifications. The task force members exchanged stunned glances around the conference table, their faces reflecting a mixture of disbelief, professional embarrassment, and growing respect as they began to understand the magnitude of what had been happening. In their midst, the janitor, the quiet, unassuming woman with the mop and cleaning cart, it seemed absolutely impossible, like something out of a spy novel rather than reality. But Walsh continued with methodical precision that left no room for doubt and painted a picture of one of the most successful intelligence operations in American history. Former CIA operative with extensive field experience in some of the world's most dangerous locations, specialized in long-term surveillance operations and deep-cover intelligence gathering in hostile environments where discovery would mean certain death. Her cover identity was so perfectly constructed and meticulously maintained over the years that even most Pentagon security personnel weren't briefed on her true status or the critical nature of her mission. She's been our guardian angel for nearly 2 decades, meticulously documenting security threats, preventing multiple potential breaches that could have compromised national security, and gathering actionable intelligence on compromised personnel within our own ranks who posed existential threats to American interests. As if summoned by the mention of her name, Maria appeared in the doorway, but she was no longer the invisible woman pushing a cleaning cart or wearing a faded maintenance uniform that marked her as part of the background. Instead, she carried a professional briefcase containing 18 years of meticulously gathered evidence, organized with the precision and attention to detail of a trained intelligence operative who understood that lives depended on accuracy. Her entire posture had transformed completely, her demeanor shifting from invisible servant to confident professional who commanded respect through her presence alone. The woman who had been invisible for so long, who had perfected the art of being overlooked and forgotten, had suddenly become fully visible, and everyone in the room finally understood with crystal clarity why Harrison's sophisticated espionage Ring had never succeeded in their previous attempts to steal classified information and sell American secrets to hostile foreign powers. Every conversation they thought was completely private, every document they believed was absolutely secure. Every plan they assumed was known only to authorized personnel. She had been there all along, listening carefully with trained ears, watching with professional eyes that missed nothing, protecting America from its own internal threats with a dedication that went far beyond any government paycheck or official recognition. The atmosphere in the briefing room shifted dramatically as Maria methodically presented her comprehensive evidence with the practiced skill and confidence of a seasoned intelligence professional who had spent decades perfecting her craft in the world's most dangerous locations. Harrison's encrypted communications with confirmed foreign contacts who had been under surveillance by multiple intelligence agencies, detailed financial records clearly showing substantial payments from hostile nations that wanted American military secrets, exhaustive documentation of his systematic attempts to access highly classified submarine technology over the past 3 years, and recorded conversations that revealed the full scope of his betrayal of everything he had sworn to protect. "He's been planning this major operation for 3 full years, Maria explained with calm professionalism, her voice now carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who had spent decades in the dangerous, shadowy world of intelligence work. Where mistakes meant death, the office wasn't actually ransacked by an external threat or hostile foreign agents. It was carefully staged by Harrison himself when he realized he was being actively monitored and investigated. He tried desperately to make it appear like an external security breach to cover his tracks and throw suspicion away from his own activities. Director Walsh nodded with visible approval and professional respect for an operation that had been executed with textbook precision. Maria's timely intervention last night prevented what our best analysts believe could have been the most damaging intelligence leak in modern Navy history, potentially compromising submarine operations worldwide and putting American sailors in mortal danger. But then came the moment everyone had been dreading, the inevitable conclusion that cast a dark shadow over their remarkable success and victory against espionage. Maria's carefully maintained cover was now completely blown after 18 years of perfect operational security, and her extraordinary effectiveness as an intelligence asset was permanently compromised. The extraordinarily successful operation that had identified and neutralized dozens of internal threats over 2 decades, saving countless American lives and protecting national security interests around the globe, could never function effectively again because her identity was now known. The woman who had willingly sacrificed her true identity, her normal life, any possibility of a family or personal relationships, and any hope of public recognition to protect her country was about to disappear once more, this time into a classified legacy that could never be publicly acknowledged, celebrated, or even remembered by the people whose lives she had saved. 6 months later, as Washington, D.C. settled into another routine cycle of government operations and classified briefings, a new janitor began working the night shift in the Pentagon's endless maze of corridors and secure offices. Her name was Elena Rodriguez, and just like her remarkable predecessor, she pushed her cart through empty hallways while officials ignored her completely, never suspecting that another guardian angel had quietly taken up the watch and begun the patient work of protecting America from threats that came from within its own trusted institution. But in a secure facility in Quantico, Virginia, far from the public eye and media attention, Maria Santos stood at rigid attention in her dress uniform as she received the Intelligence Star in a solemn ceremony attended by only 12 carefully selected people with the highest security clearances available in the American intelligence community. The citation, read aloud in the hushed ceremony room, stated simply but powerfully, "For extraordinary service in the protection of national security through prolonged deep cover operations resulting in the prevention of multiple intelligence breaches and the successful neutralization of hostile assets operating within the United States government." She would never be able to tell her family, her friends, or anyone else the real truth about her 18 years of apparent janitorial work at the Pentagon. Her tremendous sacrifice, her dedication, and her success would remain classified for the next 50 years, hidden away in files that few people would ever see or even know existed. But sometimes, the most important victories in the shadow war that protects American freedom are the ones no one ever hears about, the battles fought in complete silence by heroes who choose anonymity over recognition and service over personal glory. Because in the deepest, darkest shadows of American intelligence operations, Maria Santos had proven beyond any doubt that the most powerful weapon against betrayal, espionage, and those who would sell their country's secrets isn't advanced technology, massive surveillance networks, or sophisticated computer systems. It's a dedicated person willing to become completely invisible, to sacrifice everything personal, to keep their country safe from those who would destroy it from within for money, ideology, or personal gain.